Hi folks, today we're going to be talking about antidotes to the three fires or three poisons of Buddhism. What are they? I'm Doug Smith. I'm the study director at the Secular Buddhist Association. That's secularbuddhism.org. And if you're interested in videos about secular Buddhism, early Buddhism, philosophy, related topics, then please consider subscribing to these videos. You can either do it below if you're on YouTube, or else at the end I'll have a link. So today we're going to talk about antidotes to the three fires of Buddhism, also known as the three poisons or the three unwholesome roots of action. Question is, what are these three poisons or three fires? These are greed, hatred, and delusion, or related states of those. So those are three of the roots of our actions that are unwholesome. They get us to do things that are not to our own benefit and not to the benefit of others. So the question is, what kind of antidotes do we have? What kind of water do we have to throw on these fires? Much of the Buddha Dharma gives us techniques for dealing with such emotional states as these. So let's start with the state of hatred, or anger, or aversion. What can we do when we're in a state like that, when we're in an emotional grip of anger or hatred? First thing we can do is calm the mind. That's a relatively simple and straightforward technique. Taking a deep breath, perhaps, relaxing the body, doing basically some form of quick and easy meditation so that we get ourselves into a state where we're more objective about what's in front of us. Perhaps the most famous antidote to hatred in the Buddhist canon is metta meditation. And this is also known as loving kindness or boundless friendliness meditation. And this is a technique where what we try to do is to cultivate in ourselves the attitude of friendliness towards all beings. We might start by thinking of somebody with whom we're very friendly, a benefactor, somebody that we have very warm feelings towards. And if we focus our mind on that person for a while, we may find that the anger or hatred in the rest of the mind begins to calm down a bit. This is a meditation that basically redirects the mind from a state that is unhealthy to one that is healthy. And once we're in that more healthy state, we can then perhaps work on the anger on its own, finding that it has diminished somewhat because we have attempted to bring up in ourselves attitudes of friendliness towards all beings. Another thing we can do, which works both if we're talking about a person that we're angry towards, or just some state of the world, perhaps a car alarm going off at night, or a crowded subway, or a long line that we have to wait in, is to try to analyze the situation. What exactly is making us angry? What exactly is making us upset in this situation? And oftentimes, it's the simple fact of some external influence on our sense apparatus that is creating in us a feeling of displeasure. It's an unpleasant sensation of some kind. So let's take a car alarm at night. It's an unpleasant auditory sensation. Basically, sound waves are coming off of this car, of the alarm in the car. They're impacting on our eardrum. They're impacting on the auditory systems of the brain, which then causes anger to arise because the feeling is unpleasant. And if we can depersonalize the situation in that manner and think of it rather as sound waves impacting the eardrum that causes an unpleasant sensation, instead of personalizing it as somebody's out to do something to me, that can also help us to gain a kind of objectivity about the situation, which can also, in its own way, decrease the anger. Basically, what we're trying to do is, once again, turn the mind from the emotional state that it's gripped upon into more of an analytic state of mind, where we're trying to understand exactly what's going on in a way that depersonalizes it. And now to antidotes of greed. There are various antidotes we can think of when it comes to greed. The first one is, once again, calming the mind, taking a deep breath, perhaps even sitting down to a short period of meditation if we have the time. And that can again help to break the immediate grip that this negative, or I should say unhealthy emotion has upon us. Another form of meditation that we can do, or at least a form of thinking that we can do, is to focus upon the changeable nature of the object in the world that is gripping us at that point. Let's say we've seen some new car in the window, or a new piece of technology in a store window. It grips us with a desire to own that particular thing. Now, of course, in certain circumstances that may be perfectly healthy and we may need a new car and so on. But in many of the cases, probably most of them in fact, this is not really a healthy emotion, and we know that. We know that we don't actually need this thing in the shop window. If we can try to reflect upon the changeable nature of the world, that can help us to break the grip of that particular desire. If we reflect upon the fact that this thing in the window, in a month, in 2 months, in a year, is going to need attention, is going to perhaps be broken, it's going to break down, it's going to rust. In 5 years, it's going to be in a recycling station somewhere. That can help us to understand that whatever positive features this particular object has, it's going to lose those features in a short period of time. We shouldn't think of them as permanent positive features. We're prone to do that when we're gripped by particular kinds of desire or greed for particular objects, is to think of them as permanently good, or in some sense good in their essence, whereas in fact the benefit that we get from these things is always only temporary. Another way we can think about this is to reflect upon the change in ourselves. We know from our own history that particular objects or things in our past that have gripped us with greed, within a week, a month, a year, they're no longer of particular interest to us. They're up on a shelf somewhere collecting dust, they're in a closet. We have to find somewhere to put them. We have to find something to do with them when they break. Every new thing that we purchase and acquire is one more thing to worry about and concern ourselves with. And we know that our tastes change over time. Something that we found very interesting and beneficial many years ago, now we realize we don't particularly care about. If we reflect upon the changeable nature of ourselves, we can also see that whatever it is that is gripping us right now is, again, only something temporary in our lives. Finally, there's the issue of delusion, also known as ignorance within the tradition. What kind of technique can we use to combat delusion? And probably the most famous technique within the Buddhist canon, particularly the early Buddhist canon, is mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation gives us the ability to see experience directly, moment to moment. It gives us the ability to see directly how mental states arise based on causes and conditions. So, for example, we can see in the moment how an anger that has gripped us so completely, or some form of desire or greed that has gripped us so completely a few minutes ago, is gone now. A hatred that was all-consuming yesterday, today is completely forgotten. So we can see for ourselves directly the changeable nature of the mind, the changeable nature of the world, things that we loved, things that we craved a year ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Now we no longer crave. Our tastes have changed. The things that we craved have changed. The car has fallen into rust. The wonderful piece of technology that we saw 10 years ago that we had to own now is simply useless. So we see that in the moment. We can see in the moment as these states come and pass when we're in mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation gives us a way to see the changeable nature of the world up close. It allows us to understand up close that because the world is changeable, therefore it does not provide a secure, permanent refuge. Anything that we cling to will be gone in a few moments. It also allows us to understand that it's not about us, that we ourselves are changing moment to moment, that indeed the contents of our own minds are not under our direct control. Much as we would like to be able to control the way the mind is directed, that it's directed at the breath for however long we're sitting, we know that within a few seconds the mind will wander, that it's not under our control. That much as we would like ourselves to be our own refuge in this sense, even we aren't, because we aren't under our own control. And indeed, one of the ways that we're not under our own control is that we in fact get in our own way with these kinds of negative emotions that we've been discussing today. I mean, for example, we can think of these emotions as that second arrow in the famous Buddhist parable. The first arrow is the arrow of the unpleasant sensation itself. So the arrow of the car alarm, the arrow of someone bumping into you, the arrow of the long line, the large crowds. That's unavoidable in life. These kinds of pains of difficult situations are unavoidable. The second arrow, however, is the arrow of anger, is the arrow of greed, is the arrow that unpleasant emotion that arises based upon those facts of life. And indeed, I think within mindfulness meditation, we become immediately aware of the unpleasant character of these emotions. It's not just that our anger arises, it's not just that a desire or greed arises, it's that these emotions themselves are painful. They're not pleasant emotions. And so by allowing them to arise, by even cultivating them sometimes, as is often cultivated by modern advertising and modern political campaigning, all that we're doing is getting in our own way. We're creating secondary painful emotions to go on top of the primary painful experiences that we can't actually avoid. So in this way, mindfulness meditation, in fact, helps us to overcome these kinds of delusions, these kinds of forms of ignorance, and in a way that allows us to overcome them in time if we put time and effort into them. So these are some very simple techniques that we can use to try to combat these three fires of Buddhism. Within the early canon, there are many, many such techniques, but these are probably the most famous and some of the most useful. And if you have your own techniques that you think are really, really good in your own practice, please feel free to put them in down below in the comments. We're always interested for anything that might work. Again, thanks very, very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful in your own life. If you find videos like these useful on early Buddhism, on secular Buddhism, please do feel free to subscribe to the channel. And we'll catch you next time. Thanks very much again.